I'm sure all of you know by now that Nintendo has unveiled the Nintendo Switch OLED model, which, what the title implies, this iteration of the Switch now has an OLED display, on top of that an even bigger display, and also a LAN port on the dock now, which is something that should have been on the fucking console from day one, but hey, nice to see now, 4 years later, I guess. And you might be wondering, what are my thoughts on this latest version of the Switch? I really couldn't give a fuck less, to be honest. I've already made it pretty clear that Nintendo of the current day does not interest me whatsoever, and this OLED model of the Switch does not change that fact at all. Even if this was what people were saying it was going to be, you know, the Switch Pro, 4K display, so much more powerful than its predecessor, I still would not be interested because so little of what Nintendo offers these days entices me. I mean, sure, there's the Skyward Sword HD port, and also Metroid Dread and Breath of the Wild 2, whenever the fuck that comes out, probably next year, I don't know, but aside from those three games, very little of what Nintendo offers entices me these days. Their heavy reliance on ports and sequels that aren't really so different from the previous entry are what turned me off from Nintendo these days. And you might be wondering, then why are you so interested in Skyward Sword HD then? Because I never played the original, now fuck off. But anyways, I've already made a whole video talking about this, so you can check that out if you want, but that aside, I'm not mad that this isn't the Switch Pro that everyone promised was going to happen. I've said on this channel before that I've taken all those rumors with a grain of salt. I was pretty doubtful that even if we were going to get a new iteration of the Switch, it probably wouldn't even be remotely like what those rumors were saying it was going to be. Nintendo themselves has said that a Switch Pro was not going to happen, so I was pretty doubtful that we're going to get anything like what those rumors were promising. But at the same time, Jesus Christ, Nintendo, you really need to revamp this console. It may have a prettier display and a LAN port now, but don't be fooled, it's the same fucking console. Same Joy-Cons that are susceptible to drifting, same internals that are on par with the PS4 and Xbox One, or hell, probably even weaker than both consoles, I forget exactly. And how the fuck do you expect the Switch to carry you afloat for however long you plan on sticking with the Switch, Nintendo? Because eventually, third-party devs are going to be tired of trying to compromise with the Switch, because titles are only getting more and more demanding as time goes by, and eventually you're going to miss out on a lot of must-have third-party titles because, again, I'm sure third-party devs will be tired of trying to compromise with such antiquated hardware. Your first-party titles alone are not enough to carry your console afloat. The Wii U is more than enough proof of that. This is why I'm so happy to now have a PS5, because I'm so sick of Nintendo's bullshit. I'm so sick of them putting out a console that is so far behind its competitors to the point where it misses out on some very enticing third-party titles that I would love to play, but can't because I decided to stick with Nintendo's underpowered piece of shit hardware. The Switch may be getting some nice third-party titles like Doom Eternal right now, but really, how much longer is that going to last? Especially with a Tegra X1 inside of it, a chip that rolled out on January 5th, 2015, nearly 7-year-old hardware at this point. And this is a console that is expected to compete with consoles that rolled out in 2020, consoles that I guarantee you have much beefier internals. And I already know the age-old argument, well, the Switch probably isn't even meant to compete with Sony and Microsoft anyway. Nintendo has always been kind of their own thing, which that may very well be the case because Nintendo has not given a shit about having competent hardware for like nearly 20 years now, and not to mention the gimmicks their last few consoles have had, but still, that absolutely does not excuse mediocrity, that absolutely does not excuse consumers missing out on must-have titles that they really want to play because the product they spent money on is so laughably underpowered. I just wish that this company would finally get a grip, but it's not gonna happen. It's like screaming into a void, and that's why I don't do these Nintendo rants so much anymore, because they're so counterproductive. This company is stuck in their ways, and they don't really have to change because people are going to buy their shit regardless, including me. I'm a sucker, I'm a hypocrite, I'll admit it, because I like their games. I'm still going to play Nintendo games despite being very critical of this company, but I'm not going to buy an OLED Switch, sure as shit, because my standard Switch is perfectly fine. I never play it undocked, I always play it on my TV, I have no reason to have an OLED display, so whatever. I'm not going to buy this latest cash grab, but hey, I'm still part of the problem because I'm still going to buy games like Splatoon 3, a game that looks to be the same fucking game as Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 1, just with a 3 slapped on it now, so Nintendo can siphon more money out of their fans, including me because I like playing the online, and it's probably still going to run as if you were playing it on dial-up, but hey, they got my money, so why the fuck should they change anything? And also, I was right on the fucking money when I said this would probably be another new 3DS situation, in the sense that the quote-unquote Switch Pro will just be a marginal upgrade with some nifty new features, but nothing really much to justify you going out and buying it if you already have a Switch at home. And hey, I was right. I kind of wanted to be wrong though, because I really wanted a more powerful Switch that would at least kinda stand up against the PS5 and Series X, but that is most certainly what we didn't get. Instead, we got the same underpowered hardware, just with a nicer screen this time around. Oh, Nintendo, you just never learn, do you? Well, have fun having a pretty bare-bones lineup of games in a few years from now, because that is almost certainly going to happen if you continue to stay out with the same severely underpowered hardware. And guess what? I don't have to give a fuck, because I have my PS5, a console that will surely get all the third-party must-haves for years to come. And I'm also going to chill with my GameCube, because that was back when Nintendo was actually good. And there's one more thing that I didn't mention about the Switch OLED model. Let me end the video off with this. And watch, the Switch Pro, if that ever becomes reality, fucking watch. It's gonna be like, hey, I'm so much more advanced than my predecessor. Instead of 32 gigabytes of storage in me, I have 64 gigabytes of storage in me. Congratulations, Nintendo, you finally entered the year 2011.